In a small, bustling diner on the corner of Main Street, there was a waitress named Sarah whose warm smile could brighten even the gloomiest of days. Her chocolate-brown eyes sparkled with determination and kindness, hiding the weight of dreams she carried on her shoulders. Sarah wasn't just any waitress. She was a single mother with an unwavering spirit, juggling long shifts and late nights to provide for her young son James. Every morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon, Sarah tied on her apron and prepared to face another day of serving coffee, flipping pancakes, and lending an ear to the regulars who had become like family. Little did she know that her life was about to take an extraordinary turn, all because of an unlikely friendship with a gruff, wheelchair-bound customer named Jack. As Sarah navigated the challenges of motherhood, financial struggles, and her secret dream of owning her own cafe, fate had something remarkable in store for her. This is a tale of perseverance, unexpected kindness, and the life-changing power of believing in someone's potential. Prepare to be drawn into Sarah's world, where a simple act of compassion can spark a journey that touches countless lives and proves that sometimes, the most beautiful dreams come true in the most unexpected ways. Sarah walked into the bustling restaurant, her warm brown eyes sparkling with a smile that lit up her entire face. The familiar aroma of coffee and bacon wrapped around her like a comforting hug as she tied her apron snugly around her waist, ready to embrace another day serving her beloved community. "Good morning, everyone," she called out cheerfully, her voice cutting through the clatter of dishes and the soft hum of conversations. A chorus of greetings echoed back, causing Sarah's heart to swell with joy. This small restaurant wasn't just her workplace, it was her second home, and these people were like family to her. As she made her way to the counter, Sarah spotted Mr. Johnson, a retired teacher who had been coming here every day for the past 20 years. "The usual Mr. Johnson?" she asked, already reaching for the coffee pot. He nodded, his wrinkled face creasing into a smile. "You know me too well, Sarah. How's that boy of yours doing?" Sarah's eyes softened at the mention of her son. "James is growing like a weed. He's got a big science project coming up," she replied, pouring Mr. Johnson's coffee. As she did, Sarah noticed Mrs. Peterson, a recent arrival to town, sitting alone in a corner booth. The elderly woman's shoulders were slumped, her eyes downcast. Sarah's heart went out to her. "I'll be right back with your eggs, Mr. Johnson," she said, then made her way over to Mrs. Peterson's table. "Good morning, Mrs. Peterson. How are you today?" Sarah's voice was gentle, full of genuine concern. Mrs. Peterson looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Oh, hello, dear. I'm fine, I suppose." Sarah could see the sadness in the woman's eyes. "Well, how about we brighten your day with some of our famous blueberry pancakes? They always put a smile on my face." For the first time since she had started coming to the restaurant, Mrs. Peterson's lips curved into a small smile. "That sounds lovely, dear. Thank you." As Sarah moved from table to table, taking orders and delivering plates piled high with comforting food, she felt a deep sense of purpose. Each smile she coaxed, every kind word she shared, was a small victory. This wasn't just a job, it was her calling. Sarah's eyes sparkled when she saw the familiar figure of Jack Wheeling entering the restaurant. His weathered face was set in his usual stern expression, but Sarah knew better. She had glimpsed the warmth beneath that tough exterior. "Good morning, Jack," she called out, her voice full of genuine warmth. "Your usual spot is all ready for you." Jack nodded, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Good morning, Sarah," he replied, his voice gruff but not unkind. Sarah watched as Jack maneuvered his wheelchair to the corner table that had been specially arranged to accommodate him. She grabbed a menu and a fresh pot of coffee, heading over to his table. "How are you doing today?" she asked, pouring him a steaming cup of coffee just the way he liked it, black, no sugar. Jack shrugged, his eyes fixed on the menu, though he didn't really need to look at it. "Same as always, I suppose." Sarah's heart ached slightly at the loneliness she sensed in his words. "Well, I'm glad you're here," she said softly. "It wouldn't be a good morning without seeing you." For a moment, Jack's guard seemed to lower. He glanced up at her, his eyes softening just a fraction. "Thank you, Sarah. That's kind of you to say." Sarah smiled at him. "Now let me guess, scrambled eggs, whole wheat toast, and a side of bacon?" Jack nodded, a hint of amusement flickering in his eyes. "You've got me figured out, haven't you?" "I try my best," Sarah replied with a wink. "I'll get that right out for you." As she turned to place his order, Sarah couldn't help but feel a wave of affection for Jack. He was a man of few words, but she could tell he looked forward to these morning visits. There was something about the way his shoulders relaxed as he sipped his coffee, how his eyes seemed a little less burdened when he was here. Sarah made sure to check on Jack regularly as she moved around the restaurant. She topped off his coffee, shared a few words about the weather, and even managed to coax a laugh out of him with a silly joke she'd heard from her son. Sarah hurried back to the kitchen, Jack's order slip in hand. As she pinned it to the order wheel, her thoughts drifted to her son James. A wave of love washed over her, followed by a familiar twinge of worry. She glanced at the clock, knowing he'd be getting ready for school right about now. "Order up," the cook called, sliding a plate across the counter. Sarah grabbed it with practiced ease, her thoughts still on James. At just 10 years old, he was already so responsible, often insisting on making his own lunch to save her time in the mornings. Sarah's heart swelled with pride even as it ached with the longing to do more for her son. As she handed a steaming plate to a customer, her eyes drifted to the tip jar near the register. It wasn't much, but every bit helped. She thought of the jar at home, tucked away in the back of a cabinet where she saved every extra penny. It was her dream fund, the beginning of what she hoped would one day become her own cafe. The dream felt so distant at times, especially on days when the bills piled up and the fridge seemed a little too empty. But Sarah refused to let despair take root. She had come too far, worked too hard to give up now. "Keep smiling, Sarah," she whispered to herself, a mantra she had repeated countless times over the years. Better days would come, and she believed that with every fiber of her being. She had to believe it for James. He deserved a mother who never stopped trying, who showed him that dreams were worth chasing, no matter how long the odds. As she poured cups of coffee and chatted with regulars, Sarah's mind wandered to her plans for the evening. She had picked up an extra shift at her second job cleaning offices after hours. It meant less time with James, but the extra money would help cover his school supplies for the new semester. "It's all for him," she reminded herself, feeling a renewed wave of determination. One day it would all be worth it. Sarah wiped down the counter, her thoughts still spinning with dreams and worries, when her coworker Mary approached her with a concerned look on her face. "Are you okay, honey?" Mary asked, her voice soft and caring. Sarah sighed, offering a small smile. "Just thinking about the future, you know?" Mary nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Want to talk about it?" Sarah hesitated for a moment, then nodded. They moved to a quiet corner of the restaurant during their break, settling into a table. "I've been saving," Sarah confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to open my own cafe someday." Mary's eyes widened in surprise and admiration. "Oh, Sarah, that's wonderful." Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest at Mary's enthusiasm. "It's just a dream right now, but I'm determined to make it happen for James and for me." Mary reached across the table, squeezing Sarah's hand. "If anyone can do it, it's you. You've got more grit than anyone I know." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, touched by her friend's faith in her. "Thank you, Mary. That means a lot." But Mary's expression grew serious. "It won't be easy though. You know that, right? Running a business is tough, especially for people like us." Sarah nodded, her jaw set with determination. "I know, but I have to try. I want to show James that dreams can come true if you work hard enough," Sarah said, her voice resolute. Mary's smile was a blend of pride and concern. "You're teaching him that every day," she said softly. "Just remember to take care of yourself too, okay?" Sarah's throat tightened. Mary was right, the road ahead was daunting. But as she surveyed the restaurant, filled with familiar faces she had come to care for, she felt a deep sense of purpose. This place, her dream of owning a cafe, wasn't just about serving food, it was about creating a community and a sense of belonging. "I won't give up," Sarah vowed, her voice steady and determined. "No matter how long it takes, I'll make it happen." Mary squeezed her hand one last time. "And we'll all be here, cheering you on every step of the way." With a renewed sense of resolve, Sarah moved toward Jack's table, her smile warm, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. She gently placed it before him, noticing the faraway look in his eyes. "Here you go, Jack. Just the way you like it," she said softly. Jack's gaze sharpened on her, a small, appreciative smile playing at his lips. "Thank you, Sarah. You always remember." Sensing that Jack needed a moment, Sarah pulled up a chair. "How are you today?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine concern. Jack sighed, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. "Just reminiscing about the old days," he said, his voice tinged with melancholy. Sarah nodded, her eyes reflecting empathy. "Would you like to talk about it?" After a moment's hesitation, Jack spoke quietly. "I used to run a large company, you know. I thought I had everything under control." Sarah listened closely, her heart aching at the pain in his voice. "Then one day an accident changed everything. The business, my family, it all crumbled in an instant." Sarah reached out gently, her hand resting on Jack's arm. I'm so sorry, Jack. That must have been incredibly hard. Jack's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. It still is sometimes. But coming here and seeing your smile each day helps more than you can imagine. Sarah's throat tightened again. I'm glad I can help even in this small way. You're not alone, Jack. You have friends here. Jack's face brightened with a genuine smile. I know, and I'm grateful for it, especially for you. Your kindness means the world to me. Sarah squeezed his arm gently, her own eyes misty. That's what friends are for, Jack. We're here for each other. As Jack opened up, Sarah's heart swelled with empathy. The pain etched into his face was a testament to his struggles. With gentle encouragement, she listened as he shared more about his life, feeling a deep connection in the shared space of their vulnerability. It's been so long since I've had someone to really talk to, Jack admitted, his voice heavy with emotion. After the accident, my wife, she couldn't handle it. She left, taking the kids with her. Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. She reached out and gently squeezed Jack's hand, offering silent support. Jack continued, his voice breaking slightly. I used to have a big house, a loving family, friends who came around all the time. Now it's just me in a small apartment. The silence is deafening sometimes. Sarah nodded, her heart aching for him. I can't imagine how hard that must be, Jack. But you're not alone. Not really. You have us here at the restaurant. We care about you. A faint smile touched Jack's lips. I know, and I'm grateful, especially for you, Sarah. Your kindness is like a ray of sunshine in my life. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had always tried to be kind to everyone, but hearing how much it meant to Jack made her realize the true impact of her actions. You know, Jack, she said softly, sometimes family isn't just the one we're born into, it's the one we create along the way. And you're part of our little diner family now. Jack's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Thank you, Sarah. That means more to me than you know. As Sarah got up to return to her work, she gave Jack's shoulder a gentle squeeze. Whenever you need to talk, I'm here. Don't forget that, okay? Jack nodded, a genuine smile lighting up his face. I won't forget. Thank you for everything, Sarah. As Sarah walked away, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her kindness had made a real difference in Jack's life, and she was determined to continue being a source of comfort and friendship for him. The day began like any other, but as Sarah drove home after her shift, her old car began to sputter and shake. With a tight knot in her stomach, she managed to pull over just as the engine died completely. Oh no, not now, Sarah whispered, her heart racing. She tried restarting the car, but it only emitted a faint grinding noise. Tears welled in her eyes as the reality of the situation hit her. Sarah called for a tow truck and waited, her mind racing with worry. How would she get to work? How could she possibly afford the repairs? The mechanic's estimate was far beyond her savings, and her next paycheck was already earmarked for rent and groceries. Later that night, as she sank into her worn-out couch, Sarah buried her face in her hands. The weight of her financial struggles felt heavier than ever. She thought of her son James, peacefully sleeping in the next room, unaware of her latest setback. I can't let this defeat me, Sarah said softly to herself, wiping away a tear. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and resolved to find a way out of this predicament. There had to be a solution. Sarah grabbed a notebook and began jotting down ideas. Maybe she could pick up extra shifts at the restaurant or find a temporary second job. She could ask her landlord for an extension on the rent. It wouldn't be easy, but she had faced tough times before and always managed to pull through. As she brainstormed, she felt a familiar determination growing within her. This was just another obstacle to overcome, another challenge to face head-on. She thought about her dream of opening her own cafe someday and how each difficulty she faced only made her stronger and more resilient. We get through this week, Sarah whispered to herself, her voice gaining strength. Somehow we always do. Sarah was about to leave the restaurant when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Sarah, are you okay? Jack asked, his forehead creased with concern. She turned to face him, trying to smile. Oh, Jack, I'm fine. Just having car trouble. Jack's eyes softened. I couldn't help but overhear. Do you need a ride home? Sarah hesitated, not wanting to be a burden, but the thought of waiting for the unreliable bus made her reconsider. That would be wonderful if it's not too much trouble. Not at all, Jack said, a warm smile spreading across his face as they headed towards his specially equipped van. Sarah felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Once inside, Jack expertly maneuvered his wheelchair to get behind the wheel. As they drove through the quiet streets, Sarah found herself opening up to Jack. I don't know how I'm going to manage without my car, she admitted. Between work and getting James to school, it's going to be tough. Jack nodded sympathetically. I remember those days. Juggling responsibilities is never easy, especially as a single parent. Sarah looked at him in surprise. You have children? A shadow passed over Jack's face. I had a daughter. We lost touch after my accident. Sarah's heart ached for him. Oh, Jack, I'm so sorry. Jack shook his head as if to clear the painful memories. It's in the past now. But tell me more about James. How old is he? As Sarah spoke about her son, she noticed Jack's eyes light up. He asked questions and listened intently, genuinely interested in her life. For the first time, Sarah saw beyond Jack's gruff exterior to the kind-hearted man underneath. Before she knew it, they had arrived at her apartment building. As Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt, she turned to Jack. Thank you so much for the ride and for listening. It means a lot. Jack's smile was warm and sincere. Anytime, Sarah. That's what friends are for, right? Sarah felt a lump in her throat. The word friends filled her with an unexpected sense of comfort. Right, she agreed, returning his smile as she watched Jack drive away. She realized that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone in her struggles as she had thought. Later, Sarah watched nervously as Jack entered the diner with her son James trailing behind him. It was James's day to visit her at work, and Sarah was anxious about how her regular customers would react to her energetic 8-year-old. Hi, Jack, Sarah greeted warmly. This is my son James. James, say hello to Mr. Jack. James peered out from behind Sarah's apron, his big brown eyes full of curiosity. Hello, Mr. Jack, he said shyly. To Sarah's surprise, Jack's usual stern expression softened. He leaned forward in his wheelchair, a gentle smile spreading across his face. Well, hello, James. It's a pleasure to meet you. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had never seen Jack interact with children before and wasn't sure what to expect. My mom told me you're a great artist, Jack said, his voice unusually warm. Do you like drawing? James nodded, his shyness melting away. I love drawing, especially superheroes. Jack's eyes lit up. Really? I used to collect comic books when I was your age. Who's your favorite superhero? As James animatedly described his latest comic book obsession, Sarah watched in amazement. Jack listened intently, asking questions and sharing his own childhood memories. Sarah had never seen this side of him before, patient, kind, and genuinely interested in what James had to say. She felt a lump in her throat as she watched them interact. It was clear that Jack had a special way with children, despite his rough exterior. For the first time, she wondered about the family he had mentioned, and the mother he lost touch with. Can I show Mr. Jack my drawings? James asked excitedly. Sarah hesitated, not wanting to impose on Jack's time, but before she could respond, Jack spoke. I'd love to see them, James, he said with a warm smile. If it's okay with your mom, of course. Sarah nodded, touched by Jack's kindness. As James ran to get his backpack, she caught Jack's attention. Thank you, she whispered silently. Jack simply smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. He's a great kid, Sarah. You should be proud. Over the following weeks, Sarah couldn't help but notice a change in Jack. His visits to the restaurant became more frequent, and he seemed lighter, less burdened. She looked forward to their conversations, which had shifted from polite small talk to genuine exchanges about their lives and dreams. One quiet afternoon, while Sarah refilled Jack's coffee cup, she noticed a spark in his eyes that hadn't been there before. You seem happier lately, Jack, she said warmly. It's nice to see you smiling more. Jack looked at her with a hint of surprise, then laughed softly. I guess I do look forward to coming here more than usual. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had always hoped her kindness could make a difference, but seeing it happen before her eyes was something special. Well, we're always happy to have you here, she said, meaning every word. As she turned to leave, Jack called out, Sarah, wait. She stopped and looked back at him. I wanted to thank you, he said, his voice soft but sincere. Your kindness has made a real difference in my life. I was in a dark place for a long time, but talking with you and seeing your optimism despite your own struggles has given me hope again. Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes. She blinked them back, touched by Jack's words. Oh, Jack, she said, her voice thick with emotion. That means so much to me. I'm glad I could help, even in a small way. Jack shook his head. It's not a small thing, Sarah. You've reminded me that there are still good things in the world worth connecting with. As Sarah left the restaurant, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Jack's gratitude had made her realize the profound impact of her kindness, and she was determined to keep being a source of comfort and friendship. As Sarah gazed at Jack, she saw a man transformed. The bitterness that once clouded his features was fading, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose. She realized that, in helping Jack, she had also discovered something precious. A true friend who understood her struggles and believed in her dreams. Sarah found herself eagerly awaiting Jack's visits more and more. His presence brought a sense of calm to her hectic days, and their conversations became a bright spot in her routine. One afternoon, as they sipped coffee and nibbled on pie, Sarah felt a comforting intimacy between them, enough to share more of her aspirations. "You know, Jack," she began, wiping down the counter, "I've always dreamed of opening my own cafe, a small, cozy place where people can feel at home." Jack's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "That sounds wonderful, Sarah. Have you made any plans?" Sarah hesitated, her gaze dropping. "Oh, it's just a dream for now. With James to take care of and bills to pay, it feels so far out of reach." Jack leaned in, his expression turning serious. "Dreams are important. They give us something to strive for. From what I've seen, you have the talent and the heart to make it happen." A warm sensation spread through Sarah's chest at Jack's words. "Do you really think so?" she asked, her voice trembling with hope. "I know so," Jack replied firmly. "Listen, I may not be in the business world anymore, but I still remember a thing or two. If you'd like, I can give you some advice on how to get started." Sarah's eyes widened with astonishment. "Would you do that for me?" Jack's smile was genuine and warm, making him appear years younger. "Of course. That's what friends are for." In the following weeks, Jack shared his expertise with Sarah. He guided her through business plans, budgeting, and marketing. Sarah absorbed every piece of advice with growing excitement. "You know, Sarah," Jack said one afternoon, "you have something special. Your cooking is fantastic, but it's more than that. You make people feel welcomed like they truly belong. That's a rare gift in the business world." Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. "Thank you, Jack. I never thought I'd have a chance to make this dream a reality, but talking to you makes it seem possible now." Jack reached out and gave her hand a reassuring pat. "It is possible, Sarah. You have the skills and determination. Don't give up on your dream. I believe in you." Sarah's heart raced with excitement as she sat at her small kitchen table, surrounded by notebooks and printouts. Jack's encouragement had ignited a renewed sense of hope and determination within her. Jack's encouragement ignited a fire within Sarah, driving her to spend every spare moment researching what it would take to open her own cafe. She devoured articles on small business loans, health department regulations, and menu planning. The sheer volume of information was overwhelming at times, but Sarah refused to let it deter her. She clung to Jack's words, "You have the talent and determination," which became her mantra, propelling her forward whenever doubts crept in. One evening, after tucking James into bed, Sarah grabbed a fresh notebook. With a deep breath, she began sketching out her vision for the cafe she had always dreamed of. She imagined cozy interiors with mismatched chairs and local artwork adorning the walls. The menu would feature her famous pies and healthy, homemade meals designed to make people feel cherished and cared for. As she wrote, a mix of excitement and fear washed over her. The figures were daunting. Initial costs, rent, equipment, how would she ever afford it all? But then she thought of Jack's faith in her, and she pushed the doubts aside. She had to try. The next day at the restaurant, Sarah could hardly wait to share her progress with Jack. When he arrived for his usual coffee, her face lit up with excitement. "Jack, you won't believe what I've been working on," she said, handing him his coffee with a steady hand despite her eagerness. "I've been researching everything about opening a cafe. It's daunting, but I'm really starting to believe I can do this." Jack's eyes crinkled with pride. "That's fantastic, Sarah. I knew you had it in you. Tell me more about what you've learned." As Sarah shared her ideas and concerns, she felt a warmth spreading through her chest. Jack listened intently, offering advice and encouragement. His support made the dream feel more tangible than ever before. "You know," Sarah said softly, her voice thick with emotion, "I couldn't have done this without you. Your faith in me means everything." Jack reached out and patted her hand. "You always had it in you, Sarah. I'm just glad I could help you see that." Sarah's heart swelled with surprise and gratitude when Jack invited her to sit with him during his break. A rare gesture from the usually reserved man. She felt deeply touched by his kindness. After checking that everything was in order in the restaurant, she slid into the seat across from him. "Thank you," she said quietly, her warm brown eyes meeting his. "It's nice to sit down for a moment." Jack nodded, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. There was a weight in his eyes that Sarah hadn't noticed before. He took a deep breath, as if gathering himself for what he was about to say. "Sarah, there's something I want to tell you," he began, his voice low and serious. "You know, I used to be in the business, but I never told you the whole story." Sarah leaned in, giving Jack her full attention. She could sense that this wasn't easy for him. Jack continued, his voice trembling slightly as he spoke about the thriving business he had built from the ground up. His eyes lit up as he recounted the years of hard work and dedication it took to make his dream a reality. But then his expression darkened. After the accident, he said, his voice faltering, I lost everything. Not just my ability to walk, but my business, my sense of purpose, even my family. Sarah's heart ached for Jack. Instinctively, she reached out and placed her hand gently on his arm. Oh, Jack, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Jack's gaze softened with her touch. It's been hard to talk about, he admitted. But seeing you work so hard for your dreams reminds me of myself at your age. I don't want you to give up, no matter what obstacles come your way. A lump formed in Sarah's throat, deeply moved by Jack's vulnerability and encouragement. She gently squeezed his arm, feeling a newfound level of connection between them. Thank you for sharing that with me, Jack, she said, her voice filled with sincerity. Your strength inspires me, and I promise I won't give up. As they sat there, a comfortable silence enveloped them. Sarah realized just how much their bond had grown. Jack's trust in her, his willingness to open up about his past, made her even more determined to pursue her dreams and make him proud. Sarah's world abruptly shifted when she received a call from James's school. Her son was sick with a high fever, and she needed to pick him up immediately. Her heart raced as she hurried to inform her manager and clock out early. As she rushed past the tables, Sarah caught Jack's worried gaze. Is everything okay, Sarah? He asked, noticing her distress. It's James, she explained quickly, her voice trembling. He's ill. I need to go. Jack nodded understandingly. Go take care of your son. I hope he feels better soon. Sarah managed a grateful smile before she dashed out of the restaurant. The next few days were a blur of worry and exhaustion. James's fever stubbornly refused to break, and Sarah found herself torn between caring for her son and the mounting anxiety of missing work. She knew she couldn't afford to lose her job, but James needed her. On the third day, as Sarah sat by James's bedside, her phone buzzed with a message from Jack. How's James? Thinking of both of you. Sarah's eyes welled up with tears at his thoughtfulness. She quickly replied, sharing her concerns about James's health and her worries about work. Jack's response came swiftly. You're doing the right thing, Sarah. Your son needs you. Don't worry about work for now. Focus on James. His words offered a small comfort, but Sarah couldn't shake her persistent anxiety. She gazed at James's flushed face and felt a surge of determination wash over her. She had to stay strong for him. As the days wore on, Sarah's resolve was tested. The restaurant called, inquiring about her return, and her stack of unopened bills loomed on the kitchen counter. Yet, Jack's daily check-ins became a lifeline. Remember, Sarah, he messaged on a particularly tough night, you're stronger than you think. You've faced challenges before and you'll get through this one too. Sarah read his message over and over, drawing strength from his unwavering support. She watched James finally sleeping peacefully as his fever began to subside, feeling a glimmer of hope. Jack was right, she was resilient and she would find a way to overcome this just as she always had. That afternoon, the restaurant was unusually quiet, with only a few customers scattered among the booths. Sarah moved slowly, methodically as she cleaned the counter. Her eyes drifted to Jack, who was seated at his usual spot by the window, sipping his coffee with a warm smile. Slow day, huh? She said, filling his cup. Jack nodded, his eyes crinkling at the corners. It's a nice change of pace. Why don't you join me for a bit? Sarah glanced around the empty restaurant and shrugged. Why not? She slid into the seat across from him, grateful for the chance to rest her feet. As they settled in, their conversation naturally drifted to food. Sarah's eyes sparkled as she described her favorite recipes. There's something truly special about a homemade meal. It brings people together. Jack's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. I couldn't agree more. Food has a way of creating community. It's exactly why I always dreamed of opening a cafe. Sarah's voice softened but was full of passion. Not just a place to eat, but a place where people can gather, share stories, and feel at home. As Sarah spoke, she noticed a shift in Jack's expression. His normally cautious eyes seemed to shine with interest. He leaned forward, his coffee forgotten. A community cafe, he mused thoughtfully. That's a brilliant idea, Sarah. It's not just about the food, it's about creating a space where everyone feels welcome. Sarah nodded eagerly. Exactly. A place where lonely people can find companionship, where busy people can slow down for a moment, where families can make memories. Jack's face lit up with excitement, a transformation that took Sarah by surprise. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of hope and purpose. The connection between them deepened, and for the first time in days, Sarah felt a surge of optimism about her dreams. "You know," Jack began, his voice softening as he settled into his wheelchair, "I used to be involved in community projects before. Well, before everything changed. But this," he gestured to the empty restaurant, "this is something I could see myself being passionate about again." Sarah felt a surge of warmth at Jack's enthusiasm. For the first time, she saw a glimpse of the man he must have been before his accident, energetic, engaged, brimming with ideas. "Really?" she asked, her heart racing with possibilities. "Would you be interested in something like that?" Jack nodded eagerly, his eyes bright. "Absolutely. The thought of contributing to something meaningful again is exhilarating. With your culinary skills and my business experience, we could truly create something special." Sarah's heart raced as she glanced at the letter in her hands. She blinked, reading it again to make sure she wasn't dreaming. The words remained the same. She had been selected for a small business grant she had applied for months ago, a grant she had nearly forgotten amidst the chaos of her daily life. Tears welled up in her eyes as the realization sank in. This was a real chance to make her dream a reality. With trembling hands, she folded the letter and tucked it securely into her apron pocket. She couldn't wait to share the news with Jack. Just then, the bell above the restaurant door jingled and Jack walked in. Sarah's face lit up with a wide smile as she rushed to greet him. "Jack," she exclaimed, her voice quivering with excitement. "You won't believe what just happened." Jack looked at her with curiosity, his usual reserved expression replaced by one of keen interest. "What is it, Sarah? You look like you're about to burst." Sarah pulled out the letter, her hand still trembling slightly. "Remember that small business grant I told you about? The one I applied for ages ago?" Jack nodded, his anticipation palpable. "Well, I got it," Sarah continued, her voice almost a whisper. Jack's face broke into a genuine, radiant smile. "Sarah, that's fantastic news," he said, reaching out to shake her hand. "I'm so thrilled for you. You deserve this." Sarah felt a warm glow spread through her chest at Jack's heartfelt joy. She hadn't realized how much his approval meant to her until that moment. "Thank you, Jack," she said softly. "I couldn't have done it without your encouragement." As Sarah shared more details about the grant with Jack, a new wave of hope blossomed in her heart. For the first time, her dream of opening a cafe felt more than just a distant aspiration. It was becoming a tangible reality. Her mind raced with possibilities as she sat across from Jack at his usual table in the restaurant, the future suddenly brimming with promise. Her notebook lay open, brimming with sketches and ideas for her future cafe. Jack leaned forward in his wheelchair, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm as they brainstormed together. "What about Sarah's Sunny Cafe?" Jack suggested, a gentle smile on his face. Sarah's heart warmed at the name. It felt perfect, a reflection of her dream. "I love it," she said, jotting it down. "It's exactly what I want the cafe to be, somewhere that brings warmth and happiness to everyone who walks through the door." As they discussed menu ideas, Sarah felt a wave of excitement. She described her grandmother's famous peach pie recipe, and Jack's eyes lit up. "That sounds delicious," he said. "You should definitely include it on the menu." Sarah nodded eagerly, adding it to her growing list. She loved how Jack seemed to understand her vision so perfectly. His business expertise was invaluable, but it was his genuine support and interest that touched her the most. They moved on to discussing the interior design. Sarah described her vision of a cozy, inviting space with soft colors and comfortable seating. Jack listened attentively, offering suggestions here and there. "How about a little reading nook in a corner?" he proposed. "With some bookshelves and a couple of armchairs, it could be a nice touch." Sarah's face lit up with a broad smile. "That's a wonderful idea, Jack. It would make the cafe feel even more like a home away from home." As they continued to plan, Sarah felt a profound sense of joy and gratitude. She watched Jack, who was animatedly describing his ideas for a loyalty program. His usual reserved demeanor gave way to genuine excitement, and Sarah realized that this project was bringing him as much happiness as it was bringing her. In that moment, Sarah knew that her cafe would be more than just a business. It would be a testament to the power of friendship and shared dreams. With Jack by her side, she felt ready to embrace this new challenge and turn her long-held dream into reality. Feeling a surge of confidence, Sarah began taking concrete steps to open her cafe. With Jack's guidance, she started tackling the practical aspects of her dream. She spent hours researching local zoning laws and health regulations, making sure she understood all the requirements. One sunny afternoon, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by papers and her trusty notebook. She picked up the phone and dialed the number for the Small Business Bureau. Her heart raced as she waited for someone to answer. "Hello, I'm calling to inquire about the process for obtaining a business license," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her nerves. As she listened to the information and scribbled furiously, she felt a sense of pride. Jack had prepared her well for this conversation, and she was making informed inquiries. When she hung up, she couldn't help but smile. It felt real now, more than ever before. The next day, Sarah met Jack at the restaurant during his break. She could hardly contain her excitement as she shared her progress. "Jack, I did it. I called about the business license just like you suggested," she said, her face glowing with joy. Jack's face lit up with pride. "That's fantastic, Sarah. I knew you could do it. What's next on your list?" Sarah opened her notebook to a page full of to-dos. As she looked over the list, a sense of accomplishment washed over her. The dream was becoming a reality, step by step, and she felt ready to face whatever came next. "I think it's time to start looking at potential locations," Sarah said, her eyes gleaming with determination. Jack nodded in approval. "That's a great next step. Remember to consider foot traffic and parking when you're scouting places." As they discussed potential locations, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer just dreaming about her cafe, she was making it happen. With Jack's support and advice, she felt more capable than ever. "You know, Sarah," Jack said softly, his voice tinged with warmth, "seeing you chase your dream is truly inspiring. It's given me a fresh outlook on life." Sarah reached out and took Jack's hand in hers, her grip firm and heartfelt. "I couldn't do this without you, Jack. Your support means everything to me." As they continued to plan and dream together, Sarah realized that this journey was about more than just opening a cafe. It was about friendship, perseverance, and the power of believing in oneself and others. With each step forward, Sarah's excitement grew, and she could hardly wait to see what the future held. Her heart raced as she rushed down the sterile white hospital corridor, the sharp scent of antiseptic filling her nostrils and the beeping of machines echoing in her ears. Clutching a small bouquet of cheerful daisies, she hoped they would bring a smile to Jack's face when she reached his room. Taking a deep breath, Sarah braced herself before entering. The sight of Jack lying in the hospital bed, pale and frail, made her heart ache. But she forced a brave smile as she approached him. "Jack," she said gently, "how are you feeling?" Jack's eyes lit up upon seeing her. "Sarah," he replied, his voice hoarse but warm, "you didn't have to come." Sarah placed the flowers on the bedside table and pulled up a chair. "Of course I did. You're my friend, Jack. I couldn't stay away." She reached out and held his hand, giving it a tender squeeze. Jack's eyes welled with tears and he blinked to clear them. "You know," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I never thought I'd have a friend like you again after my accident. I pushed everyone away but you never gave up on me." Sarah's eyes filled with tears of her own. "Oh, Jack," she whispered, "you've been a wonderful friend to me too. You've helped me believe in myself and my dreams." Jack managed a faint smile. "Your dreams, Sarah, they've given me something to look forward to. Watching you work toward opening your cafe has brought joy back into my life." Sarah's heart swelled with emotion. She hadn't realized how much their friendship meant to Jack until that moment. "I'm so grateful for you, Sarah," Jack continued. "You've shown me that life still has meaning even when things seem darkest." Sarah felt a profound sense of connection and gratitude, understanding that their shared journey was more than just about pursuing a dream. It was about the bond they had forged and the light they had brought into each other's lives. Sarah squeezed his hand again, words failing her as a lump formed in her throat. They shared a comfortable silence, both absorbing the depth of their friendship. Sarah's heart soared with relief knowing that Jack was well enough to leave the hospital. She insisted on being there for him when he was discharged, her warm smile a beacon of comfort as she helped him into his wheelchair. "I'm so glad you're feeling better, Jack," Sarah said, her voice brimming with genuine happiness. "Let's get you home and settled in." As they made their way to Jack's apartment, Sarah couldn't help but notice how fragile he still looked, though there was a spark in his eyes that hadn't been there before, filling her with a deep affection. Once inside, Sarah busied herself making sure Jack was comfortable, fluffing his pillows, bringing him a glass of water, and tidying up a bit. Jack watched her with a mix of gratitude and amusement. "Sarah, you really don't have to fuss over me," he said gently. She paused, looking at him with eyes that shone with determination. "I know I don't have to, Jack. I want to. You've been such a good friend to me. Let me return the favor." Over the days that followed, Sarah settled into a routine of checking on Jack before and after her shifts at the restaurant. She brought him home-cooked meals, discussed her cafe plans with him, and simply kept him company. One evening, as they sat together in Jack's living room, Sarah realized how natural it felt to be there with him. She had come to rely on their conversations, his advice, and his steadfast support. "You know, Jack," she said, her voice soft and emotional, "I don't know what I'd do without you. Your friendship means the world to me." Jack reached out and patted her hand. "I feel the same way, Sarah. You've brought light back into my life. I never thought I'd have that again." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both reflecting on how their lives had transformed since they became friends. Sarah felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had embarked on this journey with the hope of realizing her dream of opening a cafe, but along the way she had gained something even more valuable, a true friend in Jack. Sarah's feet ached as she hurried toward the restaurant, having had a particularly rough morning. James had woken up with a fever, and she had barely managed to find a last-minute babysitter. Her mind was a whirlwind of worry as she pushed open the restaurant door. The familiar jingle of the bell above her head signaled her arrival. To her surprise, Jack was there waiting for her. His wheelchair was positioned near the entrance, and he was holding something on his lap. Sarah's brow furrowed with concern. It was unlike Jack to be here so early. "Jack, is everything all right?" she asked, her voice laced with worry. Jack looked at her with an unreadable expression. Without saying a word, he extended his hand, revealing a set of keys dangling from his fingers. Sarah's eyes widened in shock as she took in the sight. "What's this?" Sarah asked, her heart racing. Jack placed the keys and a folded note into her hand. Before she could say anything more, he pushed himself towards the door. "Jack, wait!" Sarah shouted, confusion and anxiety growing inside her. But he was already gone, the bell chiming one last time as the door closed behind him. Sarah stood frozen, the cold metal of the keys pressing into her palm. Her mind raced with questions. What did this mean? Why did Jack leave so suddenly? With trembling fingers, she unfolded the note. Her eyes scanned the paper, trying to make sense of what was happening. The restaurant around her faded into the background as she focused on the words before her heart pounding fiercely in her chest. Emotions swirled inside her, confusion, anxiety, and a flicker of hope all mixed together. Sarah looked at the keys in her hand and then back at the note, struggling to piece together Jack's sudden and mysterious gesture. Her hands shook as she unfolded the letter, her eyes widening with each word she read. She had to blink several times, ensuring her eyes weren't playing tricks on her. The note, written in Jack's elegant handwriting, explained that he was gifting her his old business, a small cafe that had been closed since his accident. Not only that, but he was also leaving her his savings to help her start anew. Sarah's knees felt weak. She stumbled to a nearby table and sank into a chair, her eyes never leaving the paper. Tears welled up, blurring the words she had just read. "Oh, Jack," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. She couldn't believe it. The keys in her hand suddenly felt heavier, more significant. They weren't just any keys, they were the keys to her dreams, to a future she had always hoped for but never thought possible. Her mind raced with the realization. A real cafe already set up and waiting for her, along with money to start anew. It seemed too good to be true. Her heart swelled with gratitude for Jack's incredible generosity, but there was a nagging worry in the back of her mind. Why had Jack left so abruptly? Was he okay? She wished he had stayed so she could thank him properly, to let him know just how much this meant to her. Sarah read the note again, savoring every word Jack had written about how her kindness had transformed his life, how she had given him hope when he had lost everything. He wanted to return that kindness by helping her realize her dream. Tears streamed freely down Sarah's cheeks as she held the note against her chest, overwhelmed by the magnitude of Jack's gift and the depth of their friendship. With trembling hands and a heart brimming with gratitude, Sarah clutched the keys to her new cafe. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of possibility and dreams turning into reality. The weight of Jack's gift settled on her shoulders, not as a burden, but as a warm embrace of support and belief. Sarah opened the cafe door, stepping inside for the first time as its new owner. The space was dusty and in need of love, but she could see its potential shining through. Sunlight streamed through the dirty windows, illuminating the faded walls and worn furniture. "This is it," she whispered to herself, a smile spreading across her face. "This is where it all begins." With renewed determination, Sarah rolled up her sleeves and got to work. She spent every free moment at the cafe, scrubbing, painting, and planning. The sound of her son James's laughter echoed through the empty space as he helped her choose paint colors. "How about this sunny yellow, Mom?" James asked, holding up a paint swatch. Sarah's eyes sparkled with delight. "It's perfect, honey. just like a warm hug. Day by day, the cafe transformed before Sarah's eyes. Her touch brought life back to the weary space. She hung cheerful curtains, arranged cozy seating areas, and filled the air with the aroma of fresh-baked goods. As she worked, Sarah often thought about Jack. She wished he could see the progress, feel the joy and excitement that filled every corner of the cafe. His generosity had set her on this path, and she was determined to make him proud. The community rallied around Sarah's efforts. Friends from the restaurant showed up to lend a hand, painting walls and arranging furniture. Even her former boss, moved by Sarah's dedication, offered advice on running a successful cafe. After weeks of hard work, the cafe was finally ready. Sarah stood in the center of the room, taking it all in. The warm yellow walls glowed in the sunlight, the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air, and hand-painted signs welcomed visitors to Sarah's place. Her heart raced as she unlocked the cafe doors for its grand opening. In the early morning light, the sun cast a warm glow on the freshly painted sign that read, Sarah's Place. She took a deep breath, savoring the sweet aroma of baked goods and freshly brewed coffee. As the first customers began to arrive, Sarah greeted them with a radiant smile. "Welcome to Sarah's Place," she said, her voice brimming with warmth and excitement. The cafe quickly filled with familiar faces from the community, former co-workers from the restaurant, neighbors, and even her son's teacher. All came to show their support. The cafe buzzed with lively conversation and the clinking of coffee cups. Sarah bustled around, serving trays of homemade treats and steaming mugs of coffee. Her hands trembled slightly with nervous energy, but her smile never wavered. She glanced over at her son James, who proudly told anyone who would listen, "This is my mom. She owns this place." As the morning progressed, Sarah kept glancing towards the door, hoping to see a familiar face. Just when she started to think he might not make it, she saw Jack. Though he looked pale, he wheeled himself through the entrance with determination. Sarah's heart swelled with emotion as she rushed over to greet him, careful not to knock over any chairs in her haste. "Jack, you made it," she exclaimed, bending down to give him a gentle hug. Jack's eyes sparkled as he took in the bustling cafe. "I wouldn't have missed this for the world, Sarah," he said, his voice soft but filled with pride. "Look at what you've achieved." Sarah helped Jack find a comfortable spot by the window where he could watch the cafe's lively activity. She brought him a cup of his favorite coffee and a slice of freshly baked apple pie. As Sarah moved through the cafe, she couldn't help but glance over at Jack occasionally. He sat there, a silent guardian, his eyes following her with a mixture of pride and contentment. His presence reminded her of how far she had come on this incredible journey. The grand opening was a resounding success. By noon, Sarah's Place was bustling with supporters and satisfied customers. The community truly came together to support her dream, and Sarah was overwhelmed with gratitude. Sarah's Cafe quickly became a cherished spot in the small town. Every morning, as she opened the doors of Sarah's Place, she felt a sense of pride and joy she had never experienced before. The aroma of freshly baked pastries and brewed coffee filled the air, welcoming customers into the warm and inviting space. As the weeks passed, Sarah noticed familiar faces becoming regulars at her cafe. She greeted each one by name, recalling their usual orders and favorite treats. Her genuine warmth and attentiveness shone through in every interaction, making her customers feel like part of an extended family. The cafe's atmosphere reflected Sarah's vibrant, cheerful spirit, bright, hopeful, and full of life. She painted the walls in soothing, comforting hues and adorned them with local artwork. Cozy armchairs were scattered throughout, inviting people to relax and linger. Laughter and friendly conversation became the cafe's constant backdrop. Jack remained a steady presence in Sarah's life. He came to the cafe most mornings, taking his usual spot by the window. From there, he watched Sarah work her magic, greeting customers and ensuring everything ran smoothly. His eyes sparkled with pride every time he saw her confidently managing her new business. During quieter periods, Sarah would join Jack at his table, discussing the day's operations. Jack offered gentle guidance based on his years of business experience. His advice was always practical and encouraging, helping Sarah navigate the challenges of being a new business owner. "You're doing great, Sarah," Jack would often say, his voice warm. "This place has become something special, just like you." Sarah would blush at his compliments, but deep down she knew he was right. The cafe had become more than just a business. It was a dream realized, a testament to her perseverance and a gift to her community. One day, while observing the bustling cafe, Sarah noticed a group of local teenagers huddled in the corner, sipping hot chocolate and studying from textbooks. A warm feeling spread through her chest as an idea began to take shape. The next day she put up a help wanted sign in the cafe window. Knowing many young people in town were seeking work experience, she wanted to give them a chance. Within a week, she interviewed several eager candidates and hired 3 bright-eyed teens, Emily, Miguel, and Zoe. Sarah took her role as a mentor seriously. Each shift, she taught them something new about running a cafe, from brewing the perfect cup of coffee to managing inventory. With a kind smile, she reminded them, every customer deserves a warm welcome. Make them feel at home. The young employees absorbed Sarah's wisdom like sponges. Emily became a skilled latte artist, Miguel excelled in customer service, and Zoe displayed a special talent for baking. Sarah beamed with pride as she watched them grow more confident each day. Jack noticed the positive change in the cafe's atmosphere. "You're doing more than just serving coffee, Sarah," he remarked one afternoon. "You're shaping these kids' futures." Sarah nodded. "I want this place to be more than just a job for them. I want it to be a stepping stone to their dreams." Over the following weeks, Sarah's cafe became known not only for its delicious food and welcoming ambience but also as a place where young people could learn and grow. The community praised Sarah for providing valuable work experience and life skills to local youth. The cafe thrived, becoming a beacon of hope and opportunity, and Sarah's heart swelled with gratitude and fulfillment. Sarah made it a point to celebrate her young employees' achievements, both big and small. When Emily was accepted into college, Sarah threw a surprise party at the cafe. She gave Miguel a bonus when his grades improved, and Zoe's homemade cookies became customer favorites, leading Sarah to add them permanently to the menu with Zoe's name. However, Sarah began to notice Jack's health deteriorating again. His visits to the cafe became less frequent, and when he did come, he seemed more tired than usual. Her heart ached seeing her friend struggle, and she knew she had to act. Without hesitation, Sarah volunteered to become Jack's primary caregiver. She adjusted her cafe schedule to allow for daily visits to his home, bringing him fresh meals from the cafe and spending time with him, talking about everything and nothing. "You don't have to do this, Sarah," Jack said one afternoon, his voice weak but filled with gratitude. Sarah smiled softly, holding his hand in hers. "I wanted Jack. You've done so much for me. Let me be here for you now." As the days passed, their bond deepened. Sarah looked forward to their quiet moments together, despite her concern for Jack's declining health. She shared updates about the cafe, the young employees she was mentoring, and the lives they were touching. One day, while arranging Jack's pillows, he said, "You know, Sarah, I've been thinking a lot lately, about the cafe, about you, about everything we've accomplished together. I want you to know how happy I am with the legacy we're leaving behind." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Jack, don't," he gently insisted. "When I gave you that cafe, I hoped it would make a difference. But what you've done with it is beyond anything I could have imagined. You created a place of warmth, learning, and community, a legacy to be proud of." Sarah squeezed his hand, her heart full of emotion. "We did it together, Jack. Your guidance and support made all the difference." Jack smiled, a peaceful expression settling on his face. "I'm so glad to have been part of it, Sarah. So happy to have met you." Sarah sat by Jack's bed, holding his fragile hand. The room was bathed in a soft, warm light from the setting sun outside. Around them, friends and community members gathered, their faces marked with concern and love. Jack's breathing was shallow, but his eyes were clear as he looked at Sarah, gratitude and peace evident in his gaze. It made her heart ache with a mix of sadness and overwhelming love. "Sarah," Jack whispered, his voice barely audible, "thank you for everything." Sarah gently squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her face. "No, Jack, thank you. You changed my life. You changed all of our lives." Jack's lips curved into a small smile as he looked around the room at the faces touched by the community they had built together. "Look at what we've done," he said, his voice growing weaker. "That's what matters. That's what lasts." Sarah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She felt a hand on her shoulder and looked up to see Mary, her former colleague from the restaurant, offering silent support. Jack's breathing grew more labored. Sarah leaned closer, tears falling freely now. "It's okay, Jack. We're all here. You can rest now." With a final gentle squeeze of Sarah's hand, Jack took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. His eyes closed and his chest stilled. The room fell silent. Sarah bowed her head, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. She felt the warmth of hands on her back and heard the soft murmurs of comfort from those around her. In that moment of profound loss, she was also deeply aware of the love and support surrounding her, the very community she and Jack had nurtured together. Through her tears, Sarah whispered, "Goodbye, my dear friend. Thank you for everything." Sarah stood before the newly dedicated corner of her cafe, her eyes clouded with tears. The wall was adorned with photos of Jack, his warm smile radiating to the world. There were snapshots of him at the cafe sitting with Sarah and James, and even some old photos from his days as a successful businessman. Each image told a story, a chapter of Jack's life that touched so many. Sarah reached out and gently touched a framed photo of Jack from the grand opening of the cafe. Her eyes shone with pride and joy as her heart swelled with emotion, remembering that special day. "Oh, Jack," she whispered, "I hope you can see this. I hope you know how much you meant to all of us." As she stood there lost in memories, she felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. Turning, she saw Mary, her former colleague from the restaurant, standing beside her. "It's beautiful, Sarah," Mary said softly. "Jack would have loved it." Sarah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She looked around the cafe, observing the faces of the community members who had gathered to support her. They were all familiar faces, regulars from the restaurant, new friends she had made through the cafe, and even some of the young people she had hired and mentored. One by one they approached the memorial corner. Some left flowers, others small mementos. An elderly woman placed a handwritten note next to a photo, drying her tears as she did so. James, Sarah's son, came up and hugged his mother tightly. "Mom, this is incredible. Uncle Jack would be so proud." Sarah's heart warmed at hearing James call Jack Uncle, a testament to how deeply Jack had become a part of their family. As the day went on, more people came to pay their respects. They shared stories about Jack, laughed over fond memories, and comforted one another in their shared loss. Surrounded by love and support from the very community she and Jack had worked so hard to build, Sarah felt a profound sense of gratitude despite her grief. She knew Jack's legacy would live on through the connections and kindness that filled this space. Back behind the counter of her bustling cafe, Sarah's eyes scanned the room, filled with laughter, conversation, and the aroma of fresh coffee. She watched people from all walks of life gathering around tables, sharing stories and building connections. Her heart was filled with a mix of joy and nostalgia as she wiped down the counter. Her gaze fell upon Jack's corner, where the photos and mementos seemed to glow in the warm light of the cafe. Her mind drifted back to the day she met Jack at the restaurant, never imagining how profoundly he would change her life. She remembered their conversations, his rough exterior slowly melting away to reveal a kind and generous soul. She thought about the countless times he had encouraged her, believed in her when she doubted herself, and ultimately provided her with the means to realize her dream. A young waitress, one of the local teens Sarah had hired, approached with a bright smile. "Sarah, table 3 needs a bit more coffee." Sarah nodded, taking the coffee pot and heading towards the table. She noticed it was occupied by some of her old regulars from the restaurant. They greeted her warmly, and she felt a wave of gratitude for the community that had supported her through her journey. Returning to the counter, Sarah's eyes once again found Jack's corner. She could almost hear his voice offering advice and telling dry jokes. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she was smiling. "We did it, Jack," she whispered. "Look at what we've created." The cafe around her was more than just a business. It was a testament to the power of kindness, the strength of unlikely friendships, and the amazing things that can happen when someone believes in you. Sarah had achieved her dream. It had become a reality, yet it had grown into something far greater than she had ever envisioned. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment below, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video.